Hey, I'm Will. I'm the educational coordinator for Front Yard Bikes. We're a local nonprofit in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We do youth workforce development, and today we're going to talk about flat repair. So when you have a flat, one of the first things you need to do is make sure your tire's aired up. So rubber's porous, so it loses air naturally over time. So first, put an air pump on your tire and air it up. If it doesn't hold air, then we have a problem and we need to take the wheel off, the tire off, and check the tube. Now to remove your wheel, some bikes have what's called a quick release. All this is a lever that we pull down and we unscrew it a little bit, and the wheel should come right out. Others have nuts on the axle, and typically we need a 15mm box wrench for that purpose. And remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. If you're moving your rear wheel, it's typically easier to shift it to the smallest cog in the rear. That makes reinstallation of the wheel a lot easier. Now to find out what size tube you need, you can look on the side of the tire right here. So this one is a 26 by 1.5. So that tells me what size tube. And those tubes are typically in a range. So just make sure that that tire falls within that range. So when you get your new tube, you want to make sure you get the right valve for your bicycle. There's two common types of valve on bicycles. One is a Schrader, which is like a car tire, and the other is a Presta, which actually has a locking mechanism to lock the valve in there so it doesn't depress when you're at high speeds. Once we have our wheel off, we need to get any residual air out of the tube. Even with the hole, it can still hold a little bit of air, and that's gonna make it difficult to get this tire off. So now we need to take our tire lever, which has a hooked part on one side, dig it underneath the tire, and pry it off, and then slide it around. Now, we're only taking one side of the tire off. That's important so we can diagnose why we get the flat. So we pull the tube all the way out. Now we need to find our flat. All right, so we're gonna use an air pump to air up the tube, and you're gonna need to air it up bigger than what you might think you need. All right, and then we find our hole. So this one, the hole is in the top of the tube. So we're gonna take the wheel with the tire still on it. We're gonna line our valve up with the hole, and then that'll tell me right where the hole corresponds with the tire. Normally you'd take a rag, but since I have cut-resistant work gloves, I'm gonna rub it on the inside of the tire, make sure there's nothing sharp that's still in there. So we're good. All right, so now I can switch my tube out. If you wanna patch your tube, we have a video on patching that you can check out on our Facebook page. If the hole is on the bottom of the tube, it typically means one of two things. Either our tire wasn't aired up all the way and it caused what's called a pinch flat, where the tube rubs against itself and friction causes a hole, or our rim strip on our wheel has shifted and one of the spokes has poked through and poked the tube. So once again, we need to find where the tube corresponds, or where the hole corresponds to the wheel, line it up, and make sure that that rim strip is intact and there's nothing sharp in the bottom there. So now we're ready to reinstall our tube. You'll see I put just a little bit of air in the new tube to make it take shape, but only just enough to make it take shape. We're gonna find the valve hole, stick the valve in. We're gonna stick our tube up inside the tire. Now we're just gonna roll the tire back onto the rim. We wanna be careful not to pinch the tube between the rim and the tire. So I wanna make sure it's tucked up in there really well. Now we wanna check our tire all the way around before we air it up and make sure that there's no discrepancy, that everything's concentric. So our tire looks like it's seated all the way around. We're not gonna air it up all the way first. We're gonna air it up to about 20 PSI. That's why it's good to have a pump with a gauge. And all we're doing is seating the tire. And this will help us get past the brake pads. Tire's seated, I check it again, make sure it's not gonna blow out, no bulges, looking good. Now, we reinstall with our quick release lever on the non-drive side. You might have to work it past the brake pads. You can kind of pinch the tire, squeeze it past there. One of the reasons we don't air it up all the way first is so we can squeeze the tire and get it past the brake pads. And make sure your wheel is centered between the fork tubes. And how you know that these levers are tight enough is when you push it to lock it down, it leaves just a little indention on your hand. And that's the industry standard for quick release levers being tight enough. And then if you had to detach your brakes, just reattach them real quick and then air it up the rest of the way. To do that, we're gonna check the side of the tire for our PSI. This range is 40 to 65 PSI. Now, if your bike is a single speed with a coaster brake where you back pedal to brake, you wanna make sure you reattach your coaster brake strap if you're changing your rear wheel. If you don't do this, it can actually destroy the hub of the bike. So it's very important to reattach the coaster brake strap afterwards. All right, so now you've changed your flat and you're ready to ride. So some tips to avoid flats in the future are keep your tires aired up, avoid obstacles like glass and sharp metal objects in the road, and be careful if you have to hit a curb. Try to unweight your tire to get over that curb. Go to our website, frontyardbikes.com, or our Facebook page, Front Yard Bikes, to get some more information on patching and some more details on the flat change. You can send us messages if you're having trouble with specific areas. We can help you troubleshoot. You can also check out some of the cool stuff we do with the kids around Baton Rouge. Thanks for watching.